Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is John and this is your Modern Tech Breakdown. Today I'm looking at more ridiculous PR spin from the CEO of Google about how search is crushing the web. Let's jump into it. So as is becoming customary, Sundar went on the Decoder podcast after Google I/O for the third year in a row and said some things that caught my attention. And this is the second year in a row that he denied Google's role in destroying the web. I've covered this issue a few times in the past, but for background, about a year ago, Google rolled out AI overviews, and this was the clearest sign yet that the days of publishers garnering web traffic through Google were coming to an end. The so-called zero-click era was upon us. Using AI, Google was changing the deal. No longer would the user be presented a list of blue links from which they could click and go off onto various websites that could be monetized through advertising. Instead, Google would present AI-generated content right on the page, eliminating the need for the user to click any links. And this is huge. This is a fundamental change in the relationship Google has with the web, and it's barely even being talked about. But thankfully, the host of the Decoder podcast did ask him about this issue and followed up multiple times. It was polite, but he didn't let Sundar off the hook on addressing this enormous change. Here's one of their exchanges.
The publishers, as they often do, responded to Google I/O announcements. So the News Media Alliance, after AI mode was announced yesterday, I would say they're very upset. Here's a statement from the president of the News Media Alliance. Links were the last redeeming quality of search that gave publishers traffic and revenue. Now Google takes content by force and uses it with no return, no economic return. That's the definition of theft, and they go on to say the DOJ lawsuits must address it. That's pretty furious. That's not a negotiation, right? That's we just want this to stop. How do you respond to that very loud set of people who say, yeah, okay, maybe it's growing somewhere, but for us, it's crushing our businesses?
Look, first of all, through all the products, AI mode is going to have sources and, we're very committed as a direction, as a product direction, to make sure. I think part of why people come to Google is to experience that breadth of the web and go in the direction they want to, right? So I view us as giving more context. Yes, there are certain questions which may get answers, but overall, and that's the pattern we see today, right? And if anything, over the last year, it's clear to us the breadth of where we are sending people to is increasing. And so I expect that to be true with AI mode as well.
And here you can just see the attempt to not answer the question. Instead, Sundar talks about plans and intentions to continue to enable this traffic. Personally, I don't buy it. Google's been working for over a decade at keeping people on Google properties and discouraging people from leaving. And it leaves the impression that nothing is changing and that Google is now sending traffic to more and more sites and there's no problem here. That's a convenient thing to say because that's hard to prove or disprove using publicly available data. But there's a great follow-up on this point.
Is there public data that shows that AI overviews and AI mode actually send more traffic out than the previous search engine results page?
Look, it's, the way we look at it is, obviously we take a lot of, we're definitely sending traffic to a wider range of sources, publishers. And because, just like we've done over 25 years, we went through the same with featured snippets, the quality of, it's higher quality referral traffic too. Mm-hmm. So, right, and we can observe it because the time when people spend as one metric, and there are other ways by which we measure quality of our outbound traffic is also increasing. So, and overall through this transition, I think generally AI overviews are also growing. Mm-hmm. And, the growth compounds over time. So whenever we work through these transitions, it ends up posted. That's how Google has worked.
Yeah.
For 25 years, and and we end up sending more traffic over time. So that's how I would expect all this to play out.
So here Sundar says again that they are sending traffic to a wider array of sites. I'm not sure I believe that, but then he says that the traffic they are sending is of higher quality. There's no way Google could know that. What is higher quality traffic? That definition varies for a single site, and if it varies by every site, there's no way that Google could have or know what is a quality click or quality traffic. That's some PR talking point nonsense right there. But unfortunately for him, we do have some data that contradicts the impression he's trying to create that there's no issue here. Here's an interesting anecdote from an indie travel content site that has been absolutely crushed by Google's AI changes. The graph at the top says it all. You can see that over the last 2 years, their traffic has basically disappeared. I haven't studied this particular business, and maybe this change in traffic can be explained in other ways, but there are tons and tons of stories like this on the web. And I encourage you to read this one. It's a long write-up and it's a great read. But to me, there's a clear pattern that is emerging, and that search referral traffic is dying, and Google is doing everything it can to not talk about it. Some might even say they're lying about it. But now we get to the real heart of the matter. Google doesn't have a choice. Here is a clip.
Eddie Q on the stand in the trial the other day said search in Safari for the last month dropped for the first time in 22 years. That's a big stat. Obviously, your stock price was affected by it. There was a statement. Is that trend bearing out that the standard Google search is dropping from devices and different kinds of searches are increasing?
No, look, we've been very clear. We are seeing overall query growth in search. It looks...
But have you actually seen the drop in Safari?
Look, we have a comprehensive view of how we look at data across the board. There can be a lot of noise in search data, but everything we see tells us we are seeing query growth, including across Apple's devices and platforms. And specifically, I think we quantified the query growth from AI overviews. And what's healthy is that the query growth is continuing to grow over time.
Let me translate that from CEO speak. Sundar is basically saying, I would rather not answer that direct and specific question because the answer causes problems for me. And one could speculate that the answer is yes, queries from Safari did decline for the first time. So here's what is really happening. Search is dying and AI is killing it. And I've said this many times before, this is an existential crisis for Google. Half of their revenue comes from search, and Google is not waiting around and watching his business burn to the ground. In fact, here's Sundar basically admitting this.
If you're sending more traffic and the goal over time is to make sure that
we may
works
be sending
out,
traffic to
we're a year into it, right? And it doesn't seem to have gotten better over there.
No, look, we are sending traffic to a broader source of people. Mm-hmm. People may be surfacing more content, looking at more content. So somebody individually may see less. There are all kinds of, at the end of the day, we are reflecting what users want.
From this short statement, you can see that Google understands that they have no choice. The customer has discovered AI, and AI is filling the need better than Google search used to, and Google has to respond. And they are. Google is working furiously and throwing everything they can to ensure that the revenue that they used to get from search transitions over to Gemini, and they're currently in second place in this effort. Right now, in my mind at least, OpenAI occupies that number one slot in terms of perception of who has the best AI. We can debate who actually does have the best AI, but to me in the marketplace, OpenAI is the leader. They came out with ChatGPT first, and I think they have that slot for now. But my issue is that this transition is going to kill many publishers, many of them small and independent in nature. Google is cutting deals with the big players like Reddit and leaving the small indie guys to die with no traffic, and Sundar and the rest of Google would prefer that you not notice this. And it's terrible. It's killing businesses large and small. It's making the web an even more useless place. And these big tech companies need to ask themselves, where are they going to get their content from to feed AI after they've killed off the web? And I'll end with this thought. This is a really fluid situation, and it's too early to say who will win and who's going to lose in this race for AI. Google Gemini looks good enough that they will probably survive, but they're also facing significant courtroom challenges right now. So how this all looks 5 years from now is really impossible to say. But right now, I think it's tough to be optimistic about the future of the web and the internet publishing industry in general. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. As always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.